To finish on our community groups, we have another community group who have been pretty active at looking at the platforms and the various features being implemented by the browser vendors. And Patrick is here to talk about this community group. We're also potentially looking to become a working group, maybe one day.
Thank you very much. Hi, everybody. So my name is Patrick. I work at Microsoft on the Edge team. And so today what I want to talk to you about is really two things. One is web features, which is a catalog of features, which I'll describe. And then baseline is the second thing that I want to talk about. So my goal today is really to update everybody on what those things are, the benefits that we're seeing with people using those things, and the challenges that we're seeing, and hopefully try to create more collaboration opportunities with you all and other working groups and community groups. So who we are, so a little bit of context. WebDX Community Group, it was created about 2 years ago. It contains people from different browser vendors. We have standards people, we have people who work on docs, and we also have a few web developers who are getting more and more active within the group. It's globally a very active group. We're seeing lots of interest and people meeting every week, lots of work on the GitHub repo as well. And we really work on two things. We have these two pillars as part of our charter. One is research, which is to try to understand the gaps and the needs that web developers out there face when trying to use the platform. I won't talk about that today, but I will talk about the second pillar, which is about building a shared catalog of the entire web platform, or the entire list of web features that people can use in various browsers. And the goal with this for us is to try to drive consistent communication about the web platform. So if we get started with web features, so what is it? It's a catalog of the web features that are part of browsers today. It covers the entire web platform, and we try to make it as complete as possible. In fact, last year in 2024, we managed to, this is when most of the work happened, and we managed to cover pretty much everything that's documented on MDN or on Can I Use. So everything that as a web developer you would use to try and build your website, it has an entry in this catalog. So we're doing this mostly for developers and more actually with them. But we're seeing more benefits beyond that type of audience. We're seeing that it also has meaningful impact on browser teams who try to prioritize their work as well. So again, we're doing it for developers mostly, but also with them more and more. There's been quite a few people on the repository helping us as well, outside of the usual browser and standard circles that this room is used to working with. And web features is really this first time when we have this common language to talk about features of the web. Because if you go as a web developer on MDN, or if you go to a spec, or if you go to a test on WPT, we're going to be talking about the same features in slightly different ways, slightly different scope, and there isn't one way to map them all together in a way that we know what we're talking about. So what we're really trying to build here is almost a reference data set that can put all of these things together in talking the same language. So we're creating those features as part of this catalog. The granularity of those features varies a lot. Because the reason is that we try to build those to map to what web developers really care about and how they perceive the web to be. We don't really care whether a feature is just one property of a CSS language or one feature in JavaScript. It really depends on what web developers do with this feature. How many, some features may be really big because they have a lot of APIs, they have a lot of interfaces that you can use from JavaScript, and some of them may be very small, like inert, that Lola mentioned before, is just one feature because it's the one thing that's new and that does something that's very specific. And it's not a problem at all for us. It's just the way that we've designed this catalog works with any size features. And it all starts with IDs, unique identifiers. When we decide to create a new feature as part of the catalog, we have to make a decision as to what it's called, what the ID will be, write a short description about it, and what's in and what's out. That's the most important. What are the sub-constituent things of that feature that should be part of it, so that when we talk about that feature, we know what's in. So what's the anatomy of a feature? It's a YAML file. It contains very little information. Some of them only have like 2 or 3 lines of text in them, and that's really all there needs to be. The one thing that's really important is this unique ID that I mentioned before. And it has a link to a specification, a short description, and then what we call BCD keys. So for those of you who are familiar with how MDN works and the compatibility tables at the bottom of MDN, those are those functions thanks to BCD. BCD is browser compat data, and it's a huge data set of all of the things that are implemented on the web and what's the level of implementation, or rather what's the level of support across browsers. And so these are called BCD keys, and we try to map all of our features to one or more of these to make sure to define what's in and what's out, essentially. This data set is used in many different places, more and more actually, but one place where you can see the data set that we work on is the Explorer website, which the CG maintains as well. I'm just going to show 2 quick examples here. On the left is the homepage of the website right now. It shows that based on the data that we have, we can show a kind of a release notes style for the web, except that it's for all browsers. It's not just for one browser. So if you go to a Microsoft Edge release notes, you'll see information about Edge. If you go to a Chrome release note, you'll see information about Chrome, etc. But here you could see something that's like merged for everything, all of the browsers at once, because we have this data set with compatibility data. And on the right, you see another example of one feature only, so that one in that case is anchor positioning, and you can see a short description of it, as well as a link to documentation, the summarized browser support, links to various bugs if there are any bugs on file, links to vendor positions, links to surveys such as state of HTML, state of CSS, etc., etc. And that brings me to the next point, which is all about connecting data. There are many places throughout the web that talk about web features. There are places such as wpt.fyi where you can test the implementation maturity within browsers. There are places like bug trackers such as Bugzilla for Mozilla, for example, where you can track the work that's going on. There are places such as MDN where you can define those features. State of CSS, HTML, JavaScript surveys where you can ask the broader population about features, what they think about them. Origin trials, which is another place where some browser vendors try to talk about web features and get people to test them. And all of these spoke different languages so far. And so what we're trying to do is to build this mapping based on this unique ID so that all of them can be interconnected somehow. So what I'm showing here on the screen is this graph of, it's a theoretical graph where everything is interconnected. It's not true in reality, not all of it. Some of it is connected already, and others we're trying to work and try to bring everything together. And the other thing I want to say here is that not everything is maintained by our WebDX community group, because that would be a lot of work. So the approach that we're trying to take more and more is, because we have this ID, then an external data source can just reference this ID, and then it maps this way. We don't have to have all of the information within our GitHub repository. So in short, everything's great, sort of. We're seeing more and more things that are happening. Developers can keep up with, the changes around the web platform easily. They can find ways to get involved as well, because it's not just one way. It's like if we link this web feature to a survey or to a bug or to an origin trial, then it gives people ways to get into the system and influence the system and get their voices heard as well. So there's a lot of benefits that we're seeing happening, but it also needs constant maintenance. It's a data source. It needs people to work on it, to add new features all the time. Features evolve over time. So what was once considered a single feature of the web, in 5 years from now, may actually just be part of a wider feature. So that's the type of work that we need to do constantly. And so if you're interested in helping out, please join the CG. And it brings me, one of the benefits that we're seeing with web features is baseline, so that the second part of my talk is really to talk about that. Baseline, you might have seen those logos on the screen, those little logos that said baseline widely available, newly available, or limited availability. They're starting to appear on MDN and other places. It was started by Google. In fact, Google still owns the name, the trademark for the name and the logos, but the definition for baseline, what it is and what it's based on, is owned by the WebDX Community Group. So there's a core, there's a number of browsers that we base this on, and a definition of what baseline is that we also base this on, that's owned by the community group. And we can make changes, and we will make changes to it whenever needed so that web developers benefit from it as much as possible. What it is, it's really a summarized version of the compatibility data. What we're trying to do is to help developers make a quicker decision as to what they can use, when they can feel much comfortable, more comfortable making a decision, essentially. It's an attempt at providing a simplified compat data that is, that's a really hard thing to do on the web, because on the web, nothing is either yes or no as to whether you can or cannot use something, as you fully know. Whether a feature is implemented in one browser doesn't mean you cannot use it because it's only in that browser, right? It could very well be part of your progressive enhancement strategy on your website. It could be, there are many ways why you might still want to use a feature even if it is not considered baseline widely available, which is the highest level that a feature can reach in our definition. But what we're saying is that for most users, most of the time, this helps a lot of people make a quicker decision, reassure them that, yes, it's fine to use that feature, in fact. And so we are starting to see baseline being adopted by more and more places. I mentioned MDN before, caniuse.com as well, and more developer tools as well, such as ESLint, which is a linter for your code, as well as VS Code, which is an IDE for writing code as well. So now it brings me to what it isn't and how to communicate about it. Communication is really key, and in fact, at the start of the project, we really worked hand in hand with MDN to make sure that they communicated baseline in the top right corner of the website in the best way possible so as not to hide, because the web is nuanced. Again, as I was saying before, because a feature is not implemented everywhere doesn't mean you cannot use it. So we continue to work with people who implement baseline on their websites hand in hand to make sure that that's communicated correctly. We're having tons of really interesting conversation with people from around the industry who are seeing risks with baseline as well, that it hides a part of, or potentially hides a part of the web platform, because when you say that it's limited availability, you run the risk of hiding potentially that feature from a wider group of people. So we're trying to work on this challenging question and bring answers to those. So again, these are not fixed, these are not rules that are fixed, written in stone. We can change them and we can make this thing evolve over time if needed. But we are seeing adoption and benefits. We're seeing rapid growth of awareness. The terminology that we've used is being used more and more, sometimes incorrectly, but it is filling a gap, definitely. People have positively responded to this, and we believe that it really helps promote, the web platform in general, and in a way that people, like web developers, really care about. So yeah, that's my talk. Thank you very much.